Lord, increase our faith. I can hear saying that. And I know that they're probably saying that with so much heartfelt yearning and pleading and desire. And I know that because I've said those words before too. Well, maybe not those words, but I've said something like it before too. Maybe you have as well. For me, one of the things that not everybody knows about me is I didn't grow up in a Christian household. I wasn't raised even really to believe in God. I was raised in an agnostic household. And my whole journey of faith is a whole story for another day, but I'll tell you that on that journey of faith, I had times in my life where I just wanted to believe. I just wanted to. I saw people who were really devout, like all different faiths, and I felt like, oh, they have this spark about them. There's something so beautiful about what they possess, their peace within the world, and I want that. I want that, but it felt like an impossibility for me. It felt like something that I would never achieve, never possess, this rich and deep faith. And so I hear that in the disciples. For me, it all came to a head one day when I was in Atlanta, Georgia. That's where I used to live a while ago. And I was in Atlanta, Georgia, and I'd been going to a church and just wasn't sure if I fit, wasn't sure if and and so I emailed the pastor and just sort of like poured out this whole email about my journey of faith and all the things that I was wrestling with and my desire, Lord, increase my faith. I think that's what he heard. And so he invited me out to lunch. And we met up one day at a restaurant there in Atlanta. And I remember it was one of those big Asian buffet kind of places. And so it was like over air conditioned. The carpet was kind of dirty. It was huge, this huge Asian restaurant. And here we are, just the two of us sitting at this booth, and there's hardly anybody around. And I had a big bowl of chicken lo mein in front of me. And I was just pouring out my heart to him. I want to believe. I want to believe. Lord, increase my faith. And he didn't have too many answers for me, but he just invited me to pray with him. And so as I sat there, I just remember so vividly just the feeling of tears cascading into that bowl of chicken lo mein. Lord, increase our faith. That's what the disciples were bringing to Jesus. And it's what we so often bring. Many of us are on the questioning believers or not believing or any kind of, our faith. It's like ask me in the morning and ask me at night, and I might tell you something different. How big is your faith? How little is it? And they bring all this to Jesus because they're human and we are too. I love Jesus, how he responds to them. He tells them this. He says, even if you had a mustard seed of faith, you could say to this tree, get up and move over here. You could move the earth. You could change the dynamics of the. If you had this mustard seed, tiny little shred of faith, just enough, just enough. And then he says something kind of confusing to us. He talks about these workers who go to work and they go through the motions of their work. And it seems like he's telling that these workers don't get gold stars for what they're doing. They just show up. And as Bill Belichick would say, they do their job, right? They just do it. They go through the motions. Well, what does that have to do with faith? Actually, it has everything to do. And those two ideas, the idea that all you need is just a mustard seed of belief, just a mustard seed of faith. But if you show up and you do the work, and nobody congratulates you and nobody asks you to sit down in the special place, but you just show up, you go through the motions, there's something powerful there. That's what Jesus is offering the disciples. There's something powerful about the showing up and the doing the work. There's something powerful about the going the motions. Now, in our culture, going through the motions is usually considered a negative. We might say, oh, I'm just going through the motions. Like I don't have that belief behind me, or I don't have my head and my heart in the game. I'm just going through the motions. But I think that has our own culture's biases and practices than anything else. Because who here has ever practiced yoga before? Has any? Oh, we got some yogis in the room. A lot of yogi folks here. What do they tell you in yoga? Now, yoga comes from the Hindu tradition, although most of us practice not being practiced. We're not bringing our Hindu faith into our yoga. But what do they tell you in yoga? They say you show up and what you do on the mat is yours for the day. And you go through literally the motions of that practice, day in and day out. You show up, you go through the motions. And what happens? You get stronger. Things start to change. Things start to work inside of you. Well, Jesus is telling his disciples that, you know what? It's not just that actually our faith tradition can be like that too. That faith is not this commodity that you either have a little of or a lot of. That it's not something that you own or possess or get to be proud of. Ooh, I'm someone with a lot of faith and you're just someone with a little bit of faith and all of this kind of thing. It's how much or how little or who has more or who has less. Jesus said, doesn't matter. You can have just the tiniest little mustard seed of faith and the world could be changed. What matters is you show up, you do the work, you do the practice, not for a gold star, but because it's your job, it's the right thing to do. Well, what does that look like as Christians? It means that we show up, we forgive people, we get into the practice of that. It means we offer mercy to our enemies. We get in the practice of that. It means we worship God, put God first in our lives. We open our hearts to them, even with our mustard seed of faith. We get in the practice of that. It means we live in community. We offer bread to strangers. We get in the practice of that. We get in the practice of that. We conform our life to following Jesus as our guide. We get in the practice of that. And here's the powerful thing about showing up and practicing your faith day in and day out. How much belief you have, when you practice it, it does change the world. It does change the world. I read an article this week from the New York Times that just cut me to my core. And it was the story of this family. They're called the Leslie family of South Carolina. And a few years back, one of the worst things in the world happened to them. A few years back, these two parents, Jeff and Katie Leslie, on about their days. Now, they lived on a big family estate, and their mom and dad had a big house in the middle, and they and their siblings had these other homes all scattered on this big family estate. And it was just the most loving, wholesome family kind of existence that you can imagine. And so one day they sent their kids up to doing odd jobs around and getting things together. It was a normal day in their life. They sent their two little precious children, Ada and Noah, to be taken care of by their parents up at their parents' big house. And then at some point that day, they didn't know. Man, they had never met before. A former NFL player, Philip Adams, who was suffering from CTE, decided to pick up a gun, walk to their house of a complete stranger, and he brutally murdered their parents and their children. And when Jeff and Katie were realizing something had happened because there were helicopters around their family compound and sirens going on, there was all kinds of a hubbub. They start running towards that big house, and somewhere on the way, somebody stopped them. I think it was Jeff's sister. When he was arriving, she stops him outside the house. She said, "You can't go any further. You can't go in. The grounds aren't cleared yet." He's asking, "What's going on? What's..." And he starts getting pieces of what might be happening, just the absolute worst thing that any parent could ever go through. And his sister is standing there, and he says these words to her, "Is it true?" And she just looks and nods her head. And in that moment, Jeff picks up a water bottle that I guess he had, and he slams it against a tree. And then he goes to another tree and he puts his arms around it, and he's digging his nails into the thick bark. And he says this, he says, "Lord, forgive him. Lord, forgive him." This is a man whose entire world is, "Lord, forgive him." This is a man who doesn't even know who he's asking God to forgive. He'll only find out later that it was Philip Adams, NFL, CTE. He doesn't know any of that. Lord, forgive him. What makes a person say those kinds of words in that kind of moment? It's somebody who's been in the practice of Christianity for a long, long time. And the Leslie family, they had been very devout, practicing Christians for a long, long time. Whole family, very devoted to their faith. Not just the kind of people who show up on Sunday, but the people who live it, embody it, practice it every single day. It was in the fight of their beings. And so when the worst happened, their whole life shattered. Jeff and Katie Leslie relied, sure, on their belief. You betcha. But they also relied. They showed up and they forgave. And the only reason that they were able to do that is because they had that practice within them. Now, some of you might be thinking, I don't even know if I want that kind of practice, because that's... How are they coping? How are they surviving? Well, Jeff and Katie will tell you, and they told us in this article, that their entire lives are destroyed by grief. Nothing can take that away. Our lives are not destroyed by hatred, by bitterness, or by violence, because they're following Christ. And the only way that they have lived that truth is because they practiced and they practiced and they practiced. And so might we. Amen.